Today's podcast is brought to you by Superior Culture Quality Brew Kombucha. They are a locally owned and operated organic beverage company. They are genuinely connected with the community and constantly striving to create flavors that you won't find anywhere else. I try to drink one of these every day because of the numerous health benefits I find. It eases my joint pain, it picks me up with energy, and it ensures healthy digestion. Superior Culture. Kombucha has changed our lives. We are also brought to you by Marquette's only heated yoga studio offering vinyasa and power classes. Tulavesi Yoga's mission is to empower you to live your best life and foster a sense of connection to self and the community. These are two local businesses that I truly believe in and help make all of what I do possible. Without any further delay, here's the podcast. What's up, guys? Welcome to Information Operation. I'm Connor Ryan, and we're coming at you from Marquette, Michigan, bringing you your locally sourced ideas, thoughts, and inquiries. Today on the podcast, we feature Alex Rowland. He is the head brewmaster, owner, and founder at Superior Culture Quality Brew Kombucha. He had a lot to share with me today about the benefits of kombucha, how it's made, and his connection with the local community. It was a real pleasure to be able to sit down and talk with him, so I hope you enjoyed the interview. Alex Rowland.
How we doing, Connor?
I'm great today. Living the dream.
Always.
Dude, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So, you are head brewmaster and owner of Superior Culture. Tell me how that got started.
Well, let's go back to summer of 2016. I was living in town, small one-bedroom apartment, making as much kombucha as I possibly could in my kitchen, just kind of playing with it. I realized it was a relatively easy and fun thing to get going in my house, and it started evolving, and I ended up buying a whole bunch of brewing equipment that I was using for beer, but also started kind of transitioning using that for kombucha as well. Had a propane-fired kettle I was using on the front porch of my second-story apartment, so I'd be running hose lines down my front stairs to feed the water and using like a copper immersion chiller to cool it all down, and then I'm carrying 10 gallons of sweet tea back up the stairs, feeding it into my glass vessels,
Right.
Flavoring everything with organic fruit juices and things still, and then bottling it all in my kitchen.
So it was like it was the same process, but just taking place in a different...
smaller, not enough space,
Right.
probably a little bit less refined. It was, the grounds for what happened. I eventually was making so much product that I started stocking my fridge
Right.
to the point where I didn't really have any room for groceries. So that's when I started giving it away to friends, and it was pretty well received. I started giving it away to some local business owners, specifically Jeremy of the Flying Moose, and
Very
he was
cool.
loving it.
Yeah.
So he told me, hey, if you can make this legit, I'll sell it. So
And that was the beginning.
that was the beginning. Started doing my research, making phone calls, trying to find a location, a commercial kitchen,
Trying to go mass scale.
trying to make it legit. I contacted the Michigan Department of Agriculture, figured out all the licensing I
Right.
need. It actually was significantly less than I thought off the bat. It was just a basic food processor license. I
Right.
needed to find my space. I needed to be zoned commercially. Had to have a 3-bin sink, and employees must wash hands signs up everywhere, and
Pretty simple stuff.
basic stuff. Got a paper towel holder set up and some soap dispensers, and we were good to go.
So that's all it took to go from like idea, homebrew, to mass scale production.
Yeah, so this was early summer of 2016. I ended up moving out of that house where I was initially making it. At some point, pretty early that year. I want to say like April. Was kind of floating around Marquette that summer.
I think I remember that.
Yeah. And then found a new house come like earlier that fall, and about the same time I found the commercial space for rent from my good friend Cole Mulder, who's
Yep.
working for Mark Corinne. So I knew that there was a space opening up. There was an old Cruisin' Coffee on Wright Street. It's a nail
Okay.
it's a nail salon now.
Okay.
or maybe eyelashes, something like
Yeah.
that. But got in there, was paying pretty minimal on rent. So, but I was commuting, from town back to kind of out by, the whole strip on 41.
Right.
And I'd be out there for hours at a time. But then at the same time, I was still working my job at the Mark, and I was working at Marquette Mountain at the same
That's
time, trying to
right.
like pay for all of these things that I was doing.
Right.
And
Grinding to support your little
yeah,
passion
yeah, a
project.
little passion project. And then we started, so I started, actually got all my licensing and stuff together probably October 2016, and was producing and testing and getting labels made and trying to figure out
Right.
how I was going to sell product.
Right.
Didn't put anything in stores until February of 2017.
So
So
we're
it was
fresh on the scene.
the day of the dog sled races last year. So it's been just a little bit over a year.
Right on, man. And before we get too far into all that, because I'm really interested in the business side of things, can you tell me what kombucha is?
All right. Yeah. So kombucha is a fermented tea. It's basically you're just starting with sweet tea, just tea and sugar,
Mm-hmm.
and you're adding that to a live culture of bacteria and yeast.
Okay.
You have yeast turning sugars into alcohols. At the same time, you have bacteria turning alcohols into acids. So what you're left with is something that's minimally alcoholic, relatively acidic. It's got that sour tart flavor.
Yeah.
And then I take everything from there and I flavor it with organic fruit juice, herbs,
Very cool.
spices, whatever I can find, whatever's
It's
local,
carbonated as
seasonal.
well.
Yeah, so the carbonation will build basically from the yeast consuming sugars after it's in a pressurized vessel. So as soon as I put that into a bottle and seal the cap on there, those yeast are going to continue to eat a little bit of residual sugar,
Okay.
producing CO2 in the byproduct of that fermentation, which in turn will become dissolved in the liquid once the liquid's cooled down.
Right.
So you're building up pressure in these bottles. I've actually had, go back to that apartment I was making stuff in before, I had a bunch of 24-ounce bottles of some watermelon kombucha, really, really sweet, sugary watermelon juice, 80-degree summer weather, and I forgot about some bottles that were sitting in my kitchen.
Yeah.
And I wake up in the middle of the night to what sounded like a grenade going off in there. Went and checked it out. Broken glass and sticky watermelon juice all over the place.
Ruthless.
Yeah. So yeah, keep it refrigerated.
That's a go-to.
Yeah, that's the thing. It doesn't necessarily, depending on sugar content, that fermentation will slow, but it's never going to stop. It's a living beverage.
Right.
When you have beer becomes shelf stable because you have a limited amount of sugar in there. So that in the fermentation process, your yeast are eating all of the sugars that came from those grains that are available to them, and you let that ferment until it stops entirely. So all the sugars are gone,
Okay.
and all the sugars were converted into alcohols. Then on a homebrew scale, if you were going to bottle it, you're going to add a little bit of priming sugar to each bottle, or like into your bucket, whatnot, just a little bit. Put it into those bottles, let them sit at room temp again for 2 weeks. Those yeast eats just that little bit of sugar and it gives it just the right amount of carbonation,
Gotcha.
and then it's done. So there's no sugars left for the yeast to eat.
But that's for beer.
But that's for beer. You don't have those bacterial cultures kind of playing back and forth out. So that fermentation in the kombucha doesn't really end that quickly. It's not quite as straightforward.
Gotcha. So the way I understand it, simply, is yeast is engulfing sugar to produce carbon dioxide and ethanol.
Yes.
Correct?
Got it.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And how did kombucha get its name?
All right. So the origin stories here on kombucha are a little hazy.
Yeah.
There's one legend that it's talking about an old I want to say Chinese doctor, Dr. Kombu,
This is ancient times.
ancient times, like a couple hundred BC, and or AD, yeah, that one.
Yeah.
So Dr. Kombu apparently had this magic elixir, and he
Kombu.
got hired by the Emperor of Japan to come over there and help him with all his health ailments and whatnot. So Dr. Kombu came over from China with his, magic elixir, aka kombucha, and this is stuff of legends. It's
Right.
not necessarily documented. I think they said the first documented cases of it were popping up in China, maybe, I don't know, 200-300, something like that.
It's just interesting to me. Kombu is the origin of kombucha.
It seems a little too convenient.
A little bit.
Yeah, not too certain on that. And kombu is also a Japanese word for seaweed, I believe. Not positive on that one. So really not sure there. I don't know. There's been kombucha reported in Genghis Khan's army, saying that it
Interesting.
gave them energy in battle, so they carried around in their leather flasks.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but again,
So in that regard, I mean, it was obviously a health ailment. It was like a health, improvement, and it helps. What kind of health benefits would you say kombucha has that you know of?
well, so let's go back to ancient times again here, and I'm sure some people have heard of these stories where people were actually drinking beer as opposed to water because there was a way to somewhat clean the water. You could control what bacteria or yeast cultures you have. You're controlling the microbial environment of your beverage. So there's like all these stories about people drinking low alcohol beer as a replacement for water because you drink the water and you don't know what's going to be in there. So along those lines, kombucha is kind of interesting because it's really, really hard to contaminate the stuff if you do it right.
Uh-huh.
Because you have a SCOBY in this liquid, which is a
That's the yeast.
symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast.
Okay, so the SCOBY is kind of like the bacteria portion of it.
It's all kind of in this microbial matrix. It's forming this one giant living organism. The yeast kind of hang out on the bottom there, and the bacteria form this top layer, and you'll see it. It'll form like this alien-looking layer on top of the liquid. And even if you take just the liquid portion off and you could filter out all the solids and you put it into another vessel and let that sit at room temperature with the right conditions, you'll see that forming, depending on your culture in a matter of a couple days.
Right, you see that in almost all the bottles of this stuff.
Yeah,
that
you'll find
formation layer at the
strands in
bottom.
there. You can find layers on top. It all depends on the conditions. If it's refrigerated, it really, really halts that, but it'll still happen over time.
Gotcha.
And it never really goes bad per se. It will be continually changing, increasing acidity and maybe alcohol content depending on the conditions.
Right. I know that kind of grosses a lot of people out, like knowing they're gonna drink like this booger in there, but
Oh yeah,
honestly, I tip it upside down like 2 or 3 times and I don't notice a thing.
you can't really tell when it's in there. If you were really hesitant about it, you could strain it through a fine mesh strainer. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't really do that.
Dude, I love that stuff,
The stuff at
honestly.
the bottom of the kegs, all that really pulpy, that's the best stuff.
Right.
The most flavor in there. I'd say the same thing about beer. You
Interesting.
get that really hazy stuff from the bottom of the keg. That's the tasty stuff.
So what does this look like mass scale, when you have a bunch of like barrels or kegs sitting around? Like, how long does this take?
So there's a lot of ways to go about fermenting kombucha. On a homebrew scale, when I first started, I was just using a 1-2 gallon glass jar with a little spigot on there. Then I amped it up a little bit and was using like 5-gallon glass fermenters, also with the spigot. As soon as I started doing things commercially, I noticed that those spigots would get so clogged up so quickly
Right.
with bacteria and yeast. It wasn't worth it anymore. So I started just using a siphon and taking stuff out of the top. So for a while there, when I first started brewing commercially, I was still doing 5-gallon batches, which I still actually do use those, but not so much anymore. They're more starters for my larger batches at this point.
Gotcha.
But 5-gallon glass jars, completely full of liquid, almost to the brim. You have a pretty large layer of SCOBY floating on top there, and then covered by, I use muslin cloth. It just needs to be a fine mesh cloth.
Okay.
I've heard companies that are using old T-shirts and whatnot, but
Interesting.
I'll buy from the fabric store like fresh muslin cloth.
And
It's
just throw it over
all
the.
crispy, clean white, and I keep it clean. So, and that goes over the top. So it's an open fermentation. It's exposed to the air as opposed to beer where you'd put an airlock on there and try and reduce that contact with oxygen.
Right.
The kombucha needs that in order to thrive.
Gotcha.
So
'Cause,
that
you
that
see
SCOBY layer
that.
almost forms like a membrane where the organism can control, the airflow between itself and the liquid.
Gotcha. Because you see that at like the Ordoc and Black Rocks or what have you, where it's just like a giant concealed like container, giant like spaceship looking
Oh yeah.
keg thing, but you don't necessarily need that for kombucha.
No. And initially when I started doing things, I would take out liquid from the primary fermenter and I would put it into a secondary fermenter carboy with fruit juice, and then I'd put an airlock on there
Yeah.
because that's just what I thought I should do when I was doing it in my house and whatnot in the first couple months that I was doing in that testing phase before I sold product. But then I realized the product actually turned out a lot better if I were to just leave that carboy completely open, put another, put a rubber band and some muslin cloth and continue that open fermentation until I put it into bottles.
Gotcha.
So I'll add, let's say I add a bunch of strawberries and basil to some kombucha. You'll actually see another SCOBY forming with, there's basil floating on top of it, and there's bacteria kind of connecting all of that. And I don't know, it's just a really cool process to watch something happen over the course of a couple days like
Right.
that. You know that those cultures are in there and they're vibrant, healthy.
So how long does one batch take to ferment?
So yes, continuing this. So now my primary fermenters are done in oak barrels. So I have 3 bourbon barrels. These are all 60-gallon oak barrels. I have 3 barrels that were once used for bourbon. 2 of them actually came from Black Rocks, and they had some beer sitting in them for like a year. The Barbaric Yop was quite delicious and high proof. But I soaked those all in Camden, which basically kills all the microbes. It's like a
Okay.
sulfide powder. There's just because with wood it's less, there's a lot of things that can be dormant in those
Right.
in the grain of the
Kinda seep
wood.
in.
Yeah. So if you soak it in Camden, it kills off all those other microbes. You got to let that sit for 24 hours. And then you rinse that out really good. So what you're left with is a clean barrel. And then I'll add, so initially I was taking these 5-gallon batches and had to add a couple of them to those barrels, and then making big old pots of tea and putting that into the barrel. And just, you could add just the liquids. If I were to take just some of that starter liquid, that really strong, like pH 2.5 kombucha, put it in that barrel, and then add, I need maybe 20% starter liquid, 80% sweet tea. And even if you just have that liquid, you'll notice that SCOBY start forming in just a matter of days. So yeah, I have 3 bourbon barrels going and 1 60-gallon white wine barrel. And as we move further into the summer here, probably going to start buying some stainless.
Nice.
You can ferment in plastic. I try and avoid it. Plastic
Right.
kind of freaks me out a little bit. I don't like why. I mean,
Well,
I'll put
yeah.
stuff into buckets here and there. It's
A lot
unavoidable in some senses because your tubing and some of your fittings are always going to be.
Yeah.
But for the
That's
most
minimal.
part, yeah. Your big plastic fermenters, if you scratch them on the inside, can harbor bacteria and whatnot. So when you have like really smooth membrane or smooth materials like glass and stainless, you can, scrub them clean, and there's no chance for any other residual microbes to be dormant in there.
Right. That freaks a lot of people out with the BPA. I mean, people are buying Nalgene water bottles and avoiding plastic water bottles entirely because of that fact.
Yeah, yeah, and HDPE, high density polyethylene, is apparently able to withstand, really low pHs without seeping any kind of chemicals in it. So I'm sure for the most part it's fine. That's just not the way I'm going about things, and I'd rather invest the money in just nicer stainless fermenters than try and do something really large and cheap. I'm kind of taking things slow. I want to grow really naturally and
Right.
and not kind of overextend myself.
Organically. And it seems like obviously you know your stuff really well. And I just want to know like why you love doing this so much.
Well, I like the culture of brewing. I like, socializing with music and
Yeah.
beer and, people coming together to a particular spot over, this craft beverage or this craft food. I'm really involved in, restaurant scenes and whatnot up here as well. And I think, eating and drinking is just one of the most natural things you can do as a person. Everybody's got to do it, so why not connect with people over it? And kombucha is just something I've been really passionate about. I love the way it makes me feel. I love all the variations in flavors and whatnot. And as the craft beverage industry continues to expand, I just wanted to be a part of that. So actually, I did just go through with some licensing and whatnot through the city. I still have yet to send in some paperwork to the state, but The city has approved me to be a microbrewer slash small winemaker on 3rd Street.
Beautiful.
So I will be able to start making some semi-alcoholic products because as of right now, my limit is that 0.5% alcohol mark. If it's under 0.5%, I can legally sell it as a non-alcoholic product. Anything over that, and you need further licensing to do so. So I guess in the future, I would like to do fruit wines and ginger beer and tepache, which is a crazy fermented pineapple drink, and just not be bound by that 0.5% alcohol mark.
Superior culture has taken off in other directions.
Exactly, yeah. And there's been some people that have made kombucha beer. I've seen it as high as 9%.
Right.
I'm not too positive. I've tried to do the same myself, and I've yet to achieve the flavors that I want. When you ferment kombucha for that long, just some things happen that it's really hard to control. You have this whole bacteria and yeast environment, and you're never really sure what's going to happen.
Right.
But, we're going to keep practicing.
That's awesome.
See what we can do. There's also another similar culture. I want to say it's pronounced Jun, but I think people say June. It's green tea and honey specifically, so as opposed to, kombucha, which could be green tea, black tea, oolong, many different things in between. And then I use organic cane sugar, so it's just like evaporated cane juice. This one uses honey specifically, and it forms a culture that is very similar to kombucha, but I think the microbial environment is just slightly different. It produces a little bit more carbonation, like smaller, fizzier bubbles, and the alcohol content generally varies to more like the 2% mark. So I'd like to start playing with that and get a barrel of that going. But yeah, can't sell it without the license. So
gotcha.
We got months ahead of us. It's gonna be a busy summer, so.
But you're looking forward to it.
Looking forward to it.
Bottom line, you're helping people.
Yeah.
Reach that.
Trying to. Marquette's just a really interesting place. You kind of have these crossing ideologies of old and new, and I think merging the two is really important. And I'll be at the farmers market all summer long, and you'll see people, and they have no idea what you're selling. They see some taps and they think you're selling beer, but you're at the farmers market, so obviously you can't be pouring beer. And
you got your samples out.
So you just start talking to people and giving them samples, and some people love it, some people hate it.
Right.
Some people you would never expect to even stop and try it, and then they end up walking away with growlers full. So
right.
I've learned to not judge whatsoever based on appearance or anything, and just trying to spread the culture, spread the health, and expand people's minds to the possibility of living beverages.
Yeah. And where physically do you think it helps people the most?
Kombucha being a living beverage, obviously it's probiotic, so you're nourishing that gut flora. It's going to improve digestion and just the overall breakdown, nutrient absorption, kind of things along those lines. I think we live in a culture where things are seen as very sterile and clean, and we're trying to taking antibiotics that are killing all of these microbes inside of us. Which I understand. I understand why things need to be sterile and whatnot. But
I need to wash my hands every 5 minutes.
I think it's making people a little unhealthy. I think we're eating processed foods that are just destroying that. So this is kind of a way to bring a little bit of that back, and raw living foods.
Right.
Very important for the health
and the immune system.
Yeah, your immune system.
Huge boost.
It's there's all these acids in there, and drinking acidic beverages actually is working to kind of restore that pH balance in your body. And it will actually, your body will counteract when it sees you're consuming something that's very acidic. Your body's going to start producing these alkaline solutions that kind of working to realign that pH.
That doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. You drink acidic liquids to get more alkaline, but so it's like an autonomic response to it.
Yeah,
that's legit.
And there's some other acids in there, like one specifically that I think I've noticed the most is gluconic acid, which is actually helps with joint pain and kind of ease of movement and whatnot.
I was reading about that.
I think that's one of the things that I've seen most prevalent, but I drink so much kombucha at this point that I kind of crave it. I woke up last winter after a night of going out and dancing and drinking, and woke up in Utah just real dry in the mountain air, and I was drinking all the water I could, and it wasn't doing it for me. So I had to walk to the grocery store and bought a bunch of local kombucha and
Oh,
just
that's
started pounding it
interesting.
down.
It's becoming more mainstream where you can find it in a lot of supermarkets.
Most places in America, actually. I mean, I don't
That's
know.
huge because that was not the case, just a couple years ago.
Absolutely.
It's come a long way.
Yeah, I mean, in Oregon, you find it on tap at the gas stations. So,
No way.
oh yeah.
Now, how are big companies doing it as compared to Superior Culture?
I've seen actually some videos that have been put out by some of the larger companies that are still fermenting in really small batches,
It's
and
good to
just
see.
streamlining those processes. So they're continuing these small batch methods, but on an automatic scale. So they have all these bottling systems in place that are
Okay.
filling thousands and thousands of jars at the same time.
Right.
Like,
But it's not just vats of this
yeah,
kombucha.
exactly.
Couldn't really be done the same way.
I know that it's done.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was a little worried about scaling up into these barrels.
Uh-huh.
Going from 5 gallons to 60. I think I was a little worried on is this gonna
You're doing
go the
60
same way?
gallons now?
60-gallon barrels, yeah.
Very cool.
But I think the porosity of the wood really helps the cultures. I've noticed them become really healthy since I started using this because it's almost like this thing can breathe on all sides, and the cultures will start growing into the seams of the barrel. So any split in the wood, any seam between the individual panels of that oak, and you're seeing cultures start to grow into that seam. It's almost like the barrel itself has become one living organism. The barrel is the environment
That's
for
interesting.
the bacteria and the yeast to grow into.
Gotcha.
So you got all the sugars just soaking into the wood, and yeah.
And where do you find these scobies that you throw in there?
Well, I started everything actually. I was required to have a legit commercial source for the scobies, so I did try and order some on Amazon. I ordered some dehydrated ones and tried to rehydrate those with minimal success. What I ended up actually doing was going to the co-op and buying a bottle of original kombucha made by GTs,
No shit.
poured it into a glass vessel with a little bit of tea and sugar, and just let it sit there. So it started forming. I had really healthy scobies actually at my old house, but obviously I was making those in my house. I wasn't allowed to transfer
Right.
those into the commercial facility. Everything
Correct.
that's produced in a commercial facility needs to be made within those walls. So yeah, I grew one
You made your
SCOBY,
own SCOBY.
and then it propagates itself indefinitely. So it'll start forming layer by layer.
It's like a flower. How big is this
I
thing?
mean, they'll grow layers. You can end up with an entire column of it in a glass vessel. So
Damn.
they'll just keep stacking, and the top layer is always the new growth.
Mm-hmm.
So as it grows, you're continually peeling off other layers. But once you have that liquid, if I got a 5-gallon glass jar of really, really strong kombucha that I let ferment for 2 weeks or so, take a gallon of that liquid and put it into another jar, let it sit for a couple days even, and you're already noticing that layer starting to form again. So you can continue repeating that over and over again. So I started with one 5-gallon jar, ended up with 12 5-gallon jars. I was spitting out like 60 gallons or so every 2 weeks this summer, which is a lot, but it's not a lot.
You're getting rid of it
was
like quick.
This summer that was the issue, is I couldn't make enough of it. So I was trying to balance between having my taps at the Flying Moose and some bottles at a couple other stores,
Mm-hmm.
and then all the kegs I was bringing to the farmer's market. But the farmer's market would tap me out in 2 hours. I bring 4 kegs to the farmer's market, and everybody's coming in there filling growlers.
Right.
The keg only fills, my 5-gallon kegs will only fill 10 growlers.
Right.
So it disappears pretty quick.
It's not a bad problem to have, though.
It was
bro.
not a bad problem to have, but we're not going to have that problem this year. Actually,
You got
we'll
big
see.
plans for this summer?
Yeah. I just got accepted to vend at Camp Green Sky,
Okay.
so that's going to be massive, and it starts. It's the last weekend of May.
What is that?
It's a Green Skies music festival they're putting on.
Whereabouts?
It's maybe 20 minutes east of Manistee,
Okay.
probably in the woods somewhere.
Yeah. Downstate.
Some big fields, yeah.
Very cool.
Pretty big names on there. We got Fruition and Trampled by Turtles and Jeff Tweedy, Mike Gordon.
Might have to check that out myself.
Yeah.
Sounds
Billy
legit.
Strings.
Sounds legit. Some bluegrass.
Bunch of bluegrass music.
Let's go.
Bluegrass and kombucha.
Very cool.
We'll be
That's a good
stomping our feet
combo.
all night.
Very good combination.
Yeah.
So you're literally downscaling.
I am. So
You're going downstate?
I'm not sure how I am going to um, I've never vended a festival like this before. I've
Yeah,
done farmers markets and I've done some smaller scale festivals up in Marquette,
right.
but this is a 3 day long festival with thousands of people at it. I don't really know how many kegs to bring. I'm gonna show up there with 100 kegs of kombucha
As
and
many as you
try and
can.
get rid of it.
As many as you can.
Yeah, and I think I probably will.
Yeah.
I'm converting my 5x8 trailer into a mobile refrigerator with taps coming off the side of it. So I'm going to drive that thing with as many kegs as my Subaru can pull and park it
Wow.
and set it up. And yeah, we'll be pouring everything into compostable cups and maybe get some stainless insulated growlers and whatnot because you can't have glass on festival grounds like
Right,
that.
right. And you have
So
employees to help you out, I'm sure.
well, so that's the thing about this summer is that I'm trying to I'm trying to take this trailer out and work festivals for several days at a time.
Yes.
At the same time, I don't want to get away from the farmers market in Marquette.
Right.
So
And
I'm
the
going to still,
businesses that you
and the
support.
businesses that I'm distributing to in town as well. So I actually have an intern now, Spencer Holman, shout out.
Shout out.
And
Very cool.
he's going to be taking over a lot of the stuff in town, a lot of drop-offs with clients. He's going to be doing the farmers market every Saturday.
That's sick.
Maybe some other farmers markets. We're coming for you, Munising,
Ooh.
Nagani. I don't know. We'll see.
Ooh.
See how this goes.
So do you have an LLC then?
I do, yes.
So you're working off an LLC.
Yeah.
Right on. And that wasn't hard to start.
No.
Where'd you come up with the name?
Had a lot of help from my father actually.
Oh, shout out.
Shout out,
Very cool.
Mac Rowland.
Now, how did he help you out? You kind of like playing around with some ideas, and he helped like narrow it down, or you were thinking?
He's a financial advisor, so
Okay.
he's very business oriented in that sense
Right
of
on.
things. Really good with money, but he actually came up with the name.
Okay.
That was him. He texted me a name one night, and I liked it enough, and it actually kind of snowballed into what ended up starting the company.
Right.
I think everything starts with a good name.
Definitely. And a logo.
Yeah.
And a sick logo.
Joe Lincoln, Drifter Print Co.
No, you got a great logo though.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you combine the words and the picture. For people who don't know, Superior Culture, the logo is a Lake Superior
Outline of Lake Superior
with Superior Culture written into it.
in cursive lettering.
Right. So it's interesting that you combine those two. A lot of people will do picture and then text below. But I
Yeah,
found it
I
interesting.
can't take
you
credit
went
for that one.
You just went and had it done?
Joe Lincoln.
Very cool. Is he local?
He was.
Okay.
I'm not sure where he's at. He's skiing somewhere right now. I'm not entirely sure.
And how is this, how's Superior Culture different than the companies that we just talked about? What do you think separates it?
Everything is, all my flavors are produced as seasonally and locally as possible. So I've made kombucha with wild blueberries that I've foraged. I will kind of pop around the farmer's market on a Saturday and see what's fresh and available right now. And I'll take that back to my shop, and next day I'm, juicing fruits or putting stuff in a blender and making, adding that to these small batches myself.
Right.
So I'll take, even with my, 60-gallon barrels, I'm still taking that liquid out of there and adding it to a 5-gallon carboy with, if we got fresh local strawberries going, I'm blending those up, putting a bunch of basil and some lemon juice in there that I pushed through it's a personal scale juicer.
Definitely.
At this point. That'll be an investment in the future. We're definitely gonna be needing a larger juicer, but right now, I'm pushing all those things through a tube myself. I'm cutting up every
It's
melon
local.
that we make.
It's raw. It's very small scale. But
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and we try not to waste anything. All of our fruit pulp is going to Shady Grove Farm to be eaten by pigs and chickens.
Right on.
So I leave a bin outside my shop, and Randy will come pick it up every week and just throw it out thaw it out right now, I guess. Turns into a big ice brick at the moment, but
Right.
he'll thaw that out and throw it in the pig pen, and they'll just have at it.
Right on.
So we're trying to, and if farmers say, hey, I have a bunch of produce that's, it's not that pretty, I can't sell it, but I can juice it and I can add it to kombucha and
Right.
flavor things that way.
So you pride yourself on just keeping everything local.
Yeah, try not to waste anything. Try and keep things as local as possible.
Sustainable.
Obviously, there's certain things that I'm not able to acquire locally, and I'm ordering things. I work with the Flying Moose right now, as far as ordering bulk sugar and tea and
Yeah.
oranges and things like that.
The things you need to make it.
I'm making a bunch of stuff with blood oranges right now, and
I
you're not finding
fucking love that stuff,
you're not gonna
dude.
find blood oranges in the UP,
Oh,
but
that's my favorite flavor, by the way.
oh, thank you.
Dude,
Yeah,
I
I
like
started
the,
that one. That was one of my initial four, but then I added hibiscus to it this time around to give it a little
yeah.
more color and a little more bitterness.
I
And
like kombucha, that when you run it through your teeth, it burns. I know that sounds a little weird, but that's my favorite part of it.
yeah, yeah,
I think it's so cool that, people can grab one of those instead of a soda.
yeah.
Because what's the sugar
I was
content
actually
like,
I was inspired by those those San Pellegrino cans.
No,
They have like
yeah, yeah.
lemonade. It's like sparkling lemonade, and
Yes.
there's this blood orange one, and I love it. But it's sweet sugary soda. But I would buy those cans for 99 cents and just chug them in the middle of the summer. And I was
Yeah,
like, all right, I want to make something with blood. I mean, I've always been
right,
obsessed with blood oranges.
right.
Every time you cut open a blood orange, it's like just got this rainbow of color on the inside of it. And
Yeah.
then you juice it, and it's this deep red. So every time I'm making, I'll make really large batches of blood orange to bottle and distribute because I'm bottling, a couple hundred bottles at a time now with that stuff.
Right.
So I'm juicing 20 pounds of blood oranges at once, and it's all I can do to not just chug a bunch of that really deep red juice. But
Right.
I have to restrain myself so I can
Save it
so
for
I
the
can
people.
share it.
For the people.
Yeah, there was a while there last summer when I was making kombucha, for the farmers market and whatnot, when I was strapped for product that
Hmm.
I wasn't drinking any of it. I was drinking all my scraps.
Oh my
I would
God.
drink the stuff left over at the bottom of the kegs that was too cloudy to sell.
Right.
Yeah.
But you weren't taking any for
I was
yourself.
trying, yeah, I was trying to share it.
See, you're not working at the mark anymore, or the mountain. You're not
I
doing
don't,
You're
yeah,
full
full
time.
time,
Superior
self-employed.
culture. That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's a blessing and a curse,
Yeah, what's your day-to-day look like?
Well, it's the greatest thing about being self-employed is having that freedom to, if we get a bunch of snow, I say, all right, I think I'm gonna go to the mountain for the day.
Straight up
I
to
can do this
Bohemia.
work. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can do this work at 8 o'clock tonight if I want to, or I can do this
Right.
tomorrow. But that's also the worst part about it because it's all self-motivated.
Hmm.
I have to really stay disciplined in order to stay on top of things. And then doing all of these things by myself, I do have a little bit of help now, but
You had to get this thing
initially,
off the ground.
yeah, I had to do all this to myself. So I'm making all these sales. I'm trying to do marketing through social media. I'm doing all my accounting, managing all my things by, I have to keep up on my orders and whatnot. But then I'm also the guy who's producing everything and bottling it
So that's all you.
and selling it at the farmers market. So it was definitely, I'm a little overstrapped. I'm an engineer by trade. I graduated from Michigan State with a biosystems engineering degree in
Right on.
2014. But so I'm a little new to this whole business oriented, sales oriented thing. So it's
Right.
definitely different having to deal with
A business mindset.
clients and whatnot like that. I'm good at math and science and things. So,
Yeah.
but we're getting there. We're developing these
Absolutely.
interpersonal relationships with clients and whatnot, and trying to just connect with the local population as much as possible.
And as a young entrepreneur, what would you say the biggest challenges are?
I think that, figuring out where you want your company to go. So you have to understand, this is what we're about. So before you start getting all widespread and whatnot, you have to determine, I think that with me, I don't want to get too large to the point where I'm not able to taste every batch. I don't want
Right.
to put out anything that I don't think is top notch. And I already have seen, that how that could happen. I don't want to be that distant from it.
Gotcha.
I would like to be, managing all of these things and whatnot, but I still want to be able to, the other day I was out in the woods foraging, and I picked some pine and some spruce and did a side-by-side test batch of, with some grapefruit juice, and was testing, northern evergreens in flavoring kombucha. So I don't want to get away from being able to do things like that. So I think just keeping your
Keeping your
sight,
why, your
yeah,
purpose
yeah,
intact.
exactly. Not letting yourself. You see all these microbreweries now that are, selling out to macro breweries
They're
and
trying
getting
to
bought up,
expand.
and they're just trying to get too big. And I don't know. I mean, I'm sure it's pretty difficult when you're looking at a check for millions of dollars right there to not just take the money, but yeah, we're gonna
This
try
is your
and
baby, though.
yeah, exactly.
You
It's
see.
not so much about that. Trying to make a living, not a killing.
That's a great attitude. And where was your learning curve on that? When did that take place?
Still happening.
Still happening.
Oh yeah, learn new things every day.
Did you have any like vivid moments where you're like, this is how I want to do things. Like I'm not a sellout. This
Yeah,
is
absolutely. There's been days where I'll be sitting in my shop by myself until midnight. I've been working for 14 hours in there just
hmm
by myself, listening to music, really in the zone.
You got a nice shop though.
And then there's other days where I'm really frustrated with things and you just want to bail on everything and kind of, tear your hair out a little bit. But I've spilled liquid all over the floors. I've lost product. I've broken glass.
Yeah.
It all happens. Everything
Yeah.
happens, and you just kind of have to keep on moving and accept that there's going to be losses. Not everything's going to go perfect. Yeah, there's a lot to learn, and as I continue to scale, there's so much I still need to learn.
That's a great way to be, is to forever be a student of your craft.
Oh yeah,
That's a huge principle in running a business.
yeah. I'm by no means a master. I've
Keeping that
brewed.
book on hand.
Yeah, definitely. It's ready to go. I'm read. I spend a lot of time poking around the internet, reading things. It's hard because being in this business, in this kombucha industry, there's
hmm
not that much information out there on how
Right.
things are done. So I was at Ice Fest a couple weeks ago, and I met a guy who's starting a kombucha brewery out in Washington, and we were chatting for 30
Right.
minutes
Getting into
nonstop.
the thick of it.
Yeah, so I'm learning about all these other methods. He's got these cold brew tea methods and just bottling processes and whatnot. And it's there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot of I'm always buying stuff on the internet. I'm buying new vessels to ferment in, or like new little bottling techniques and devices and whatnot. And
Right.
it's fun. I enjoy spending money back into the company.
Well, it's an investment, not an expense.
Yeah,
That's the beautiful
exactly.
thing about it.
Yeah, I like buying toys. I bought a wine corker actually for the sole purpose of I've wanted it for a really long time,
hmm
but I was making some bottles of bucha for my friend's wedding, but I wanted
Very
them to look
cool.
really nice.
Yeah.
So I put them in 750 milliliter Belgian bottles with wine corks sticking out of the top, cages on the corks, really, really nice labels that I hand wrote calligraphy on.
That's
But
cool to be able to do special
I so
things like
I bought
that.
that wine corker. Like, yeah, I didn't really need it, but it's a
Maybe we'll use
business
it again,
expense. I'm sure I'm gonna use it. I would like to start putting out something in the future. We'll keep our eyes posted for that.
That's an awesome perk to have.
Yeah.
I'm curious when times get tough and you got, gallons of kombucha on the floor in front of you, broken glass. What do you keep in the back of your mind that keeps you like, I'm gonna keep going with this?
I think the fact that this is mine, I'm not working for somebody else. It could
Yeah.
always be worse. There's just horrific things happening all over the place, and I have a pretty damn good life.
Yeah.
I enjoy what I do with my time. Sometimes it gets a little crazy and sun's shining and you just really want to get out there, but you have a lot of work to do. And it does. I love the outdoors so much, and it's really hard to be cooped up inside sometimes. But I think that being in this business and whatnot is actually going to be able to enable me to kind of get out more in the future. I just have to put my time in now, and
Right.
eventually I'll be more managing and handling things kind of all out and about, as
Yeah.
opposed to filling hundreds
Filling
of
bottles.
bottles at the time. And
Right.
I
But you got to
know
earn it. That
exactly
makes sense.
there's automated bottling lines out there that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I mean, we're not looking towards that anytime quite yet.
Anytime soon, but that kind of leads me to my next question is like, what is your long-term goal for this company?
Um, it's I would like to in the short term here, I am looking towards opening up my shop as a retail storefront, more
Right.
as like a stop and go kind of filling station than a
With
tap
all the
room.
options.
So yeah, I don't know if I have eight flavors on tap at all times, and people can stop in, uh, stopping in like you'd stop in to get a coffee in the morning or something. You're filling up a cup and going, or you're filling up your growler and taking it for the week, and just kind of keep that going for a while. Then from there, obviously looking towards Opening up an actual tap room where people can come hang out, and especially with these new licenses and whatnot, you could have
Right.
different brewed beverages on tap. You could have alcoholic options, you could have non-alcoholic options, and kind of keeping that as our driving theme. Like, it would be a tap room that wouldn't necessarily be focused on alcohol.
Right.
Obviously, that's going to be involved, but if people wanted to, like-minded people want to come out and hang out and have a business meeting like they would at a coffee shop or something along those lines, keep that option open, I guess.
Right.
It's
So it'd be open during the
it's a
day, and
social place that isn't necessarily revolved
it's a
around alcohol.
culture.
Yeah. So that's one really important aspect of things. I would like to refine my bottling process to the point where I can at least saturate Marquette and kind of maybe start expanding outside of Marquette.
Right.
Get up to Houghton, get out to Munising, Negaunee, Ishpeming.
Big time.
I don't know how far out I want to go with it. I don't necessarily. I'm not right now. I'm not looking towards getting distributors and whatnot, which is still self-distributing everything.
Yeah, because then you're looking at trucks. You're looking at
It's
a
just
whole lot of
another
different.
person to pay down the
Yep.
line, taking another 30% of your profits, something like that. Not entirely sure, but it also kind of distances you from your clients and whatnot. So, we'll self-distribute to the point where it doesn't make us crazy.
Very cool.
I'm not positive on that one yet. There's going to be a larger production facility at some point, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then maybe starting to integrate all these other things. I've friends interested in, fermenting vegetables and growing medicinal and gourmet mushrooms, and there's a lot of different directions I think you could get sidetracked with.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe kind of starting to expand the horizons there beyond just beverages. I don't know that I'll ever be trying to open an actual restaurant or anything, but it would be cool to have a tap room that served, very organic focus,
Little
health
snacks
foods
or
and
whatever.
things.
Very
Have
cool.
a soup of the day, salad of the day, maybe
Some
make some
live music.
smoothies,
Some music.
live
Feels
music. That's
good.
happening. That's gonna happen. We're gonna see what happens this summer, but I have a pretty good back parking lot at the facility there, and maybe set up a stage built out of pallets and throw a little kombucha music festival.
Killer.
Yeah, we'll see.
Keeping it local.
Yeah. So that's the goal, I guess. And then beyond that, I think that one of my biggest goals is to expand event planning and things along those lines. So,
Okay.
anything from a bike race to a music festival to, I don't know, even catering a wedding or something. I like serving something straight from the tap to the person. You're handing them a cup and they're buying it right from you. I like that side of things. I love that I can distribute to retail stores and whatnot, but I think more than anything, I love being able to pour a cup at the farmer's market and
Yeah.
hand it to somebody
And watch your
and
face
just,
when
yeah,
they drink
exactly.
it. That's
Giving
what
out
makes you
samples,
tick.
free samples always though. We're always giving out free samples.
I
So
noticed that.
if you ever want to try some,
Stop by the farmer's market.
yeah.
So where else can people find your stuff? For locals listening.
So we got a first client, always Flying Moose. Things are going to be changing there in the next couple months. We'll see how things go. But yeah, we have 4 taps set up there as well as bottles in the fridge. Baby Cakes is carries bottles and
Cool.
maybe putting a kegerator there in the future. There's been some rumors. We'll see what happens. Tula Vesa Yoga have bottles. Third client ever, maybe second.
They're awesome over there.
Good people. We have a tap on at Contrast Coffee. Actually, we have 2 taps on at Contrast Coffee. We're doing a
Right?
so they have cold brew coffee on tap. They have a seasonally rotating kombucha on tap, and as of late, we've been experimenting with a mixture of the two. So I'm using cold brew concentrate to flavor kombucha. So yeah,
Kombucha coffee?
there's 5 gallons
that
on
what you
tap.
just said?
Yeah, cold brew kombucha.
I got to get over there.
Yeah, it's good. We're still working on the recipe a little bit. I'm kind of still playing with how much sugar and how much coffee I'm adding.
Yeah.
I want to get the right balance. I want that bitterness of the coffee without it being too overpowering. You still want to be able to taste that kombucha, keep it
Definitely.
light, keep it bubbly, but it's getting there. It's getting good
That's
actually.
interesting. That's combining 2 of my favorite things.
Yeah, I'm
Not
into
bad.
it. Get a little energy boost. I've been
Yes.
playing around with like some yerba mate and some kombucha too. I really like that. Really
Yeah.
gets you going. But yeah, we
Kombucha's good
got
at that on its own too.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's tea, so
Right.
the majority of the
Right.
caffeine from the tea is preserved in the fermentation process. I'm not entirely sure. I can't be positive on,
The
if any of
content.
that is actually degrading or whatnot. There's not that much information on it, but
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine the majority of it is preserved there. Yeah, we got bottles at Black Rocks. We got bottles at Marquette Nutrition.
Very cool. Yep.
Where else are we going now? We have bottles at Ace Harvey and Hardware.
No way.
Ace Hardware in Harvey. Bottles at Michigan Made in Harvey.
Beautiful.
Some bottles at Econo Foods now.
No.
Oh yeah,
Really?
yeah, right there by the checkout.
Okay.
Who am I missing here?
The
Something.
Ordoc. Why don't you go to the Ordoc?
Oh, I've been tugging on their ear for a minute. It's gonna
me,
happen.
me too. Every time I'm in there, I'm saying, "Hey, man."
It's gonna happen. Let me check this one real quick. Make sure I'm not forgetting anything here. Um, oh yeah, Northern Michigan University.
Oh yeah,
That's
Sujay.
a big one.
Right on. So what do you say when you go talk to these people?
I usually bring kombucha.
Right? That's a good
That's a good start. Bring
Good
kombucha and a
start.
business card. So I've been walking around. I got 3 flavors and bottles right now. So I'll show up to a store, try and find a manager or whoever does their grocery buying,
Right.
and I'll drop off the product, tell them a little bit about myself, and tell them to give it a try, and then follow up as much as you can. So with something like Black Rocks, and Barrel and Beam,
Oh,
yeah,
right on.
can't forget that.
Brand new over there.
Brand new out there. Open on Saturdays. Go check it out. Um, so I'll go in. So with breweries and whatnot, it's kind of like an option for, so let's say somebody can't have beer because they can't have gluten, or there's designated drivers and people who
Right.
end up at bars like that can't be drinking at the moment.
Right.
So that's kind of my marketing scheme for breweries and whatnot.
Definitely. Well,
Um,
that's smart. I mean,
yeah, coffee shops, kind of the same thing. Sometimes you want to go hang out at a coffee shop, but I don't know, don't want to drink coffee.
right. You know what? The buzz.
Yeah,
I get it. It's late at night.
yeah, something. So it's a cool option to have. And in the case of Contrast, he was already setting up a kegerator
Yeah.
for the nitro coffee,
Yeah.
so it was just kind of a natural move there. But then yeah, grocery stores, health food places, they're
Ace
already
Hardware.
they're already
You know.
that was a friend of a friend here.
Yeah.
Got kind of a lead that it's because the owner there is a big fan, and I think she's gonna drink them all herself. But
Right.
yeah, we'll see.
But that's cool. They're offering you some help and some support.
Yeah, the more visibility you get, the bottle itself is it's marketing.
Big
You
time.
see the labels in the
The
shelves.
shirts too. I like your shirts.
Oh yeah,
Great color on those.
I need more stickers.
Yeah.
Got to get some of those printed. Start slapping them up. Put them on your water bottles.
And then another big opportunity coming up here is Spring Ferment.
Ooh yeah.
Tell me about what's going on over
Well,
there.
hold on, I might need some beer for this one.
Over at the Lakeview. It sounds like quite the event. I mean, they're offering kombucha, beer, cheese, wine, pretty much anything you can think of fermented. What am I
Spring
missing?
ferment is there's cider, there's mead.
Right.
Um, it's a really cool thing. I think that it's a lot different than most beer festivals you go to because of all those other options.
Yeah.
And it's
Kid-friendly.
really cool to try different things like that. We did that last May,
Yeah.
I think. It was outside at Lower Harbor, and it was a pouring rainy day. So we started off that morning at the farmers market, broke down the farmers market at 1 o'clock, and went straight to Lower Harbor with our setup. And set up the kegerator, started pouring kombucha from till like 7 o'clock, walking around, talking to all these local brewers. I met, there's a place out near Ontonagon it's an apiary, aka like a bee farm, producing honey and making
Oh,
mead
right.
from their honey. They don't sell any of their honey. They
What's
just make
mead?
mead.
What is-
Mead is just honey wine, so it's just honey
Oh,
and
okay.
water and flavorings and things, and then
And that's how the
fermented.
fermentation.
Yeah,
okay.
so it's a little bit slower ferment because the sugars in the honey take a little bit longer to break down than sugars in fruit or beer or
Right.
whatnot. So it's like, it'll take a couple months to ferment, but fantastic stuff, and really cool to see something like that. So I really enjoyed it. I've actually worked some events and things with them since then, but also Spring Ferment, you're talking to you're talking to people who are coming from Shorts, or you're talking to people from
Right.
Black Rocks in the Ordock, or breweries that are a little farther. There's a bunch of winemakers there. I'm interested to see what this year will be like as it's going inside. So going to be even more connected and close
Rain or
with people.
shine.
Yeah,
Rain or shine, you'll be
yeah.
there.
But yeah, there was music and people dancing around, and everybody's got
Right on.
pretzel necklaces, and it is a good time. The Marquette home brewers are putting that on, and there's going to be a bunch of beer that's been made by local guys in Marquette
Sweet.
that are just passionate about home brewing. They're actually starting, so they're going to be opening up a brewing co-op here. It's kind of in the works right now. They're working on construction and whatnot in the facility. Kind of like the food co-op, but for beer.
Interesting.
So that's going to be really cool.
Totally.
And I think, them being the ones putting on Spring Ferment, I think it's going to be a really good time this year.
I'm looking forward to it. When is it?
March 24th.
March 24th.
That's a Saturday.
That is not next Saturday, but the following.
The following, yes.
March 24th, Lakeview Arena.
Lakeview Arena, be
Marquette,
there.
Michigan.
Tickets are $35, I believe.
Okay.
And it gets you, all your drink tokens, and you'll be eating cheese. There's going to be a bunch of food trucks there.
Right.
Yeah, it's going to be a good
They're
time.
pulling the food trucks right in there?
I don't know. I'm not sure how that's going yet. It's happening, though. There's a bunch of them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. I think we got Copper Crust, we got Diggs Catering, Coney Truck will be there.
Perfect.
The Cheese Guy,
Music.
music,
Is there
drinking.
is there an artist list yet?
I'm not positive on
music?
that one.
Sounds like a great time. Well worth the $35, eh?
Well worth it. Yeah, you can't put a price on that.
Right on.
It's yeah, I think that Beer Fest in Lower Harbor is one of the greatest times you'll ever have in your whole life. But Spring Ferment is a little more low key, and you're just able to talk to some of these people a little bit closer
Right.
in detail. And yeah, it's really cool to be able to connect with the people that make the things that you're consuming. So
Absolutely. You can actually stop and have a conversation with the brewmaster.
yeah,
Is that your title?
It was yeah, self-proclaimed.
Yeah.
We were really actually well received last year. I was a little nervous, being at a festival with all these alcoholic options. Is anybody really going to take their tickets and come, get kombucha with them? And we tapped out of all our kegs.
Right on.
We ended up with a whole bunch of tickets. We're actually kind of doing a conjunction thing with designated driver tickets. I think you can get the designated driver tickets at a reduced rate, and those will get you special tickets that are only available for redemption at my booth.
Oh, righteous.
So that they've been awesome to us.
Some strategy.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well, dude, before we wrap this up, how can people get a hold of you if they're interested in, getting kombucha at their store or their business?
So Superior Culture MQT is my email, my tags on all social media, and my website. So
Okay.
superiorculturemqt.com or at gmail.com, or find me on Instagram, Facebook. Pretty easy to get a hold of. I'm a pretty quick responder on any platform.
Got good reviews.
Yeah, it's
5 stars.
It's madness these days,
Yeah.
I'm talking to different people on all these different platforms, and it's a crazy world we live in.
Absolutely. And
Really easy to connect, though.
the world of business has changed tremendously based on that.
Yeah. I mean, we were actually just talking about this the other day about how there's this growing group of young professionals who, we're not connecting on LinkedIn, we're connecting on Instagram, and
Right.
It's an interesting thing, I think.
Yeah.
Things becoming a little more casual, and I think it's just easier to connect with something with somebody when it's not so formal, and you don't have to, put your suit on, and
Right.
it's a cool thing.
Definitely.
It's a beautiful thing.
And it's great to express yourself through that stuff too.
Yeah.
And as long as you can use it as a tool rather than a distraction,
Yeah.
I
Which
think-
is hard.
huge tool.
Yeah. Well,
Extremely valuable.
there's a lot of good memes out there, though.
I suppose, Alex Rowland. I suppose. Well, dude, I really appreciate having you on the show and showing up here today with some homebrew and ready to rock and roll. So until next time, guys,
Till next time, good to be here.
ride the waves, dude.